Okay, so this is a 3-day trip now. Tonight is Peacehaven versus Eastbourne United in under 23 game, and then tomorrow is going to be Sutton United versus Man United under 21s, and then Wednesday is Buxton under 19s versus FC United under 19s, and the last game of the day will be of the trip will be Wrexham versus Peterborough. Well, on the train down to London, I decided to tweet and to post on Facebook about my experiences of really bright days when I'm on the train there, and how debilitating it is to me now, as we spoke about in the past. I do like to always be productive and doing something. I'm not a person who can just sit around to do nothing. I've always got to be doing something. And as you know, I try and reduce the price of my trips by putting stuff on eBay and Vinted, or if I've got no signal, I try and digitise my games been to list, and I try and do these on the train. But as you can see by the picture, on the train down to London, it was a really bright day, and on the London Midland trains, they are just got huge windows, and the sun was just belting in, and if I try to struggle to look at the phone screen, it just really strains my eyes and gives me a headache or whatever, and it's just not good for me, and God knows what it's doing to my eyes at the same time, so what damage it's doing. So I don't do it, because it's just impossible, really. So I just sit there with my eyes shut, and it's very frustrating, because it's not what I want to be doing, and I find it really difficult to stop myself from trying to go back to it and all that. Go back to doing the stuff on eBay and Vinted and that. But I have to try and stop myself because it really is bad for me, and it's just that's how frustrating that can be. Right, so we're here at the ground. As you can see, it's all in darkness. It was fine when I left London, I checked it, but since I got on the train, they postponed the game. So, very frustrating, really. The other game that was in this area as well has also been called off. It's dry as a bone now, but they're both saying waterlogged pitch. So, yeah, not great. Frome Town was the other one that I looked at just now, standing there. But that's like 2.5 hours from here, so no chance of getting there. So, absolute and utter waste of a night. Very, very, very frustrating. So, back to London now, and just have to try again tomorrow. Right, so here we are at Russell Square Tube Station. Just going to log on now and try and do this delivering Uber by public transport, see if it works. I am back now at the hostel. That went quite well actually. I only did 3 orders. I just spent 3 hours out. But I could have got another one, but I was actually on the underground, so I didn't take that one, but I probably should have done. And it logged me off when I hadn't realised, because I had a low battery on my phone, which I didn't know it did. But the 3 orders I did were fine. I earned £14 doing it, so that actually worked quite well. It's definitely a viable thing to do. I'll check it out with what I did travel wise tomorrow when it comes up on my Oyster. But I think, to be fair, that is definitely a viable thing to do. Travel around on the transport and deliver food. So great stuff, well chuffed. Right, so just heading down to St Pancras now to get the train down to West Sutton for the Sutton United, Man United under-21s game. My eyesight can affect me looking at stuff like information boards and stuff, and how challenging that can be, and how the way that they've just positioned the lights and that really makes it difficult for me, and how, because there are only a small amount of people that have my issue, it's never really considered by companies or anybody about how they place things and how they do things, because people like me have got such a small majority in the world. We're just not taken into account, and you can understand that. I get that, and I'm not going to moan about that, but it just shows the frustration that you're not included in anything. You just have to find your own way around things, and it's a lot about listening and knowing where you are really when you're travelling like that and stuff like that. Luckily, I have done this line quite a few times, so I knew what I was going and stuff, and they do announce the stations as you're going along as well, so that's quite handy. But yeah, it is frustrating because the halo of the strip light there goes right over the board there showing you what station you're next at, so that completely covers it. I can just about see it if I put my hand to my eye, like as if I'm shielding my eyes from the sun. I can just about squash the halo down enough to see what it says on the board. But yeah, it just shows you how little things can affect you quite largely, really. So just on the way to the racecourse now for tonight's game. I managed to just nip home between the two games and get ready for tomorrow's trip. I'm going on another couple of day trip, so I needed to put everything on charge and get my travel dry and stuff like that. So I did all that and grabbed some tea, and now back out for this one. So that's it for this trip. £162 spent for a 3-day trip. I think that's pretty good. So I did the Uber Eats, and I obviously earned £14 off that. Now, I could have probably earned loads more if I'd have gone on, but it was just an experiment to see how I did. So I only did about 2.5 hours, because although I was trying to do 3 hours, I hadn't noticed the last half an hour that it had logged me off. I think it was because I rejected the order when I was on the tube, and then I must have lost signal. So I think, in hindsight, I probably should have just got off at the next station and done that order, and then I'd have earned a little bit more, and I wouldn't have been logged off. But I did quite well. That was a good experiment, and it worked well. So I'm pleased with that. Other than that, money-wise, the accommodation was quite cheap, and didn't spend much on food and drink at all. Just a couple of drinks here and there that I had to keep myself warm. And the Buxton game was free. The Wrexham game, phenomenally, was £2 cheaper than the Sutton game was, which was surprising. There you go. But yeah, pretty pleased with that. So I'll probably do some more of those Uber Eats deliveries. What I could do with it is finding somewhere to leave the bag, the heat bag, down in London for either nothing or for relatively cheap, because it is a cumbersome thing to carry around with you all the time. So I had to obviously drag that all the way to Buxton and then drag that all the way back to Wrexham as well. So it wasn't ideal, that. So if I could find a way that I could get that stocked away, that would be good. Or a fold down one. I mean, I've got one there that I can compress but not really fold down to put into the other bag, which is a bit frustrating. But I think probably the best thing is to find somewhere to actually hold it up in London, because it's only going to be London where I'm going to be able to use it. I don't think you'd be able to do that anywhere else. What I did notice when I did the trips in London there is that actually I was going to do it all by public transport. I actually did a couple of those deliveries just by walking, because it, like I said, it's like 6 minutes on the bus or something, but it's a 6-minute walk, so you weren't going far at all, and I wasn't really far off. Like, I was supposed to be on a bike, so it was like, it's like 4 minutes on a bike, but it's 6 minutes to walk. You think, I'll just walk it. I wasn't missing the times by much either, so I wasn't too much slower, and no one seemed to notice or care really, so that was great. So that's fine. Did those orders, and I'm not spending any money at all, because it's only costing me shoe leather, so that was quite good. Somewhere I had to travel to, and the last one I did was quite a long way out, and that took a time to do, but it said, like, even that was like, it said 30 minutes to get there on a bike, and it took me only about 35 minutes to do it on public transport. It had said 38. I timed myself. It took me 35 minutes to get to that one, the last one I did there. So that was pretty good. The only issue with that was then I have to travel back into the city then to get an order, because I was quite a long way out in Hammersmith there. But again, it didn't cost me a lot on the trains, on the tube and stuff, so that was great. Adding the disabled rail card to your Oyster card really has helped with that. So we'll do that again, and we'll try and reduce our trips even more. But overall, yeah, a good trip. Really frustrating with the Monday. It was a massive deluge of rain just before I left London, and I think that's what's called those 2 games off. There was 2 games there in Eastbourne, and they were both off. Really frustrating that was, but we'll try again with those, and hopefully get them in at a future date. Really frustrating, but it wasn't a wasted trip because we had the Sutton game the next day. So it wasn't a totally wasted trip, and we managed to get that Uber Eats thing done. So I feel like it was well worth the whole trip, really. A little frustrating, but overall I think it was pretty much of a good trip, really.